North Carolina State Highway Patrol.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
And welcome back to the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray.
Well, hey, man.
Furries.
Is that
that's
a
a
new kink, or what are we?
No. That was.
Then why do you?
Well, I want to just kind of reflect briefly on furries. Where are we going? Where did this come from? So this past weekend, I had the privilege of participating in the ALS walk.
Oh, good for you. My family did that for years too.
Yeah, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So I have a dear cousin, first cousin once removed, if we're going to be technical, who suffers from ALS.
Yeah,
it's
my
a
papaw.
Horrible disease. So your grandfather?
Yeah,
had
grandfather. Yeah, he passed away from it. He had it for about 7 years.
Yeah.
We would do the walk.
Oh wow. So he had it for a while.
Yeah, he was one of the few that made it past like that 2 year mark.
2 years.
You know?
Yeah. Well, every year the ALS United organization has a phenomenal benefit walk. And it's on Halifax Mall in Raleigh. It was really cool. And
he
I
passed the legislation bill, right?
Yeah, you do. You go all the way around the cat. You go around the governor's mansion. It's a really great event, and it's hosted in part by furries.
Bullshit.
No, I'm so serious. I mean, by like more furries than I have ever seen in one place.
Are you sure it just wasn't an event that was like?
No, I'm talking like they had Woolly Bull there. They had like
Okay.
Ramses. Like they had like mascots. But I'm talking. I mean, it was like a I don't know if a chapter or like I don't know a den maybe. I don't know what the
And it was
correct
literal sponsor. It wasn't just like a group of them had somebody who
no,
they were walking.
It seemed to be no. It definitely seemed to be like they were part. I'd have to go back and like check the list of sponsors. But the reason I asked,
anybody that supports ALS, they're welcome into my tent.
Yeah, for sure, big tent. The
Yeah.
reason I ask, or the reason I bring this up is because I don't have any immediate friends who are furries, but like I have students who are furries. I have former classmates from college and high school who are furries. But this is the first time where like I when I was at this event, I was like hanging out kind of on the periphery of Halifax Mall, and a group of furries approached me and wanted me to like dance. I had no clue what to do.
But you danced like the whitest white guy could dance.
I froze, dude. I was paralyzed. and I was talking, my girlfriend was there, and I like after this event, the furries come over, try to get me to dance. I don't. Like
Okay.
and she was like, like a lot of folks who have social anxiety will participate in this community. And props to the furry community. It's very inclusive.
Yeah.
And
No
very
kink shaming on this end.
well, even beyond, I mean, it's not a sexual thing. It's a social thing, and they have people you enter
If
in.
that makes you feel better interacting, then Daniel.
Well, the whole the upside to this whole
this
story.
is a crazy banter, by the way.
The upside to this whole story is it caused introspection.
Okay.
Because I'm at this event, and like I said, there's Woolly Bull from the Durham Bulls, there's Ramses. And if Woolly Bull or Ramses had come up to me and started dancing, I would have danced.
Right.
And it wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have felt weird about it at all.
Okay.
And so what I've been wrestling with is what's the difference?
Yeah.
Why was I paralyzed with anxiety and awkwardness when my friendly neighborhood furries approached me? But if it had been Woolly Bull, I would have done the Macarena.
Is it the ratio?
Is
it the
it could be the
non-furry
numbers
to furry ratio?
It could be the numbers. I mean, maybe I did feel a little swarmed. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. So listeners, maybe you guys can chime in.
Well,
but
Daniel Fox, who do we got today?
that's my persona now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, folks. Today we have proof for you that there is such a thing as life after Raleigh. We talked to a lot of politicians. We know of a lot of politicians who can't envision what it is like to not be wearing that suit and tie, walking around the state capitol. And today we have proof that you can go to Raleigh, you can do some cool work, and then you can go back home and pick right back up where you left off and have an awesome life and still be involved in this thing we call North Carolina.
Yeah.
So today, folks, we have Chaz Beasley. He's an attorney and former state legislator from Mecklenburg County, down from Huntersville specifically.
It was what, District 92?
Yep, it was District 92.
92. That's right. Born and raised in a low-income single-parent home in Statesville, he was supported by his family, church, and teachers, and graduated from Harvard University with honors before earning his law degree from Georgetown. From Statesville to Harvard and then Georgetown. That's
Man.
a movie.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I want to see that biopic whenever
It would
that's
be on Hallmark, though.
It would totally
it's
be a
not going
Hallmark.
to anybody's AMC theater.
And
you
if
know,
we
it's-
could
it's
find a way to
Hallmark.
make it like Christmas themed.
It would win.
Exactly.
So Chaz returned to North Carolina after school to practice law and serve his community, which he has. He was elected twice to represent District 92 in the North Carolina House of Representatives and currently serves on the State Board of Community Colleges. He lives in Mecklenburg County still with his wife, Lindsay, and their daughter, Ava, and their 2 dogs. What breed of dogs do you have?
Portuguese water dogs.
Oh, those are great dogs.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
That's like Obama. Didn't Obama have a
He
Portuguese?
did.
Yeah, that's
He
right.
did.
Okay.
He did. But my wife likes to always say, like, she had one before.
Before it was cool.
Okay.
Yeah, she wants everybody to know that. So everybody in podcast land, my wife had one.
There
Cool.
it is.
Important to clarify. Well, Chaz, thank you so much for coming on the Holler.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing I want to jump into is I think you're in a unique position to answer this question, having been in the halls of power, having been a state legislator, and now being, I don't know if the term is just private citizen or maybe a veteran lawmaker. Let's just say somebody, you're at Food Lion tomorrow, and somebody approaches you and you guys are small talking, and you learn that this person literally just moved to North Carolina. Like they're unpacking their car. They came to town yesterday to move to North Carolina, and they want to know, they want to understand what's happening in Raleigh right now. And I mean like right now, late spring 2025. What do you tell them?
I tell them that there are plenty of things they need to be paying very close attention to because so much of the attention goes to what's happening in Washington, understandably so. It's on every major news outlet. You're going to see a lot of that. But a lot of the things that happen in Raleigh are what are going to really affect your day-to-day life. So when you start talking about, for example, taking the State Board of Elections when we are in the middle of a case where people's votes are getting thrown out potentially and saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to politicize it a little bit more. There's not enough politics in the State Board of Elections. We need to judge it up a little bit more, right? That's a huge issue because now you don't even know if when you go to the ballot box to pick people, already have a problem with the fact that there are a lot of districts here that are not competitive where somebody can literally waltz in, not try, and win.
Thanks, pal. Gerrymandering.
Right, exactly. So, this is a real issue that people need to know about. They need to know about the fact that every session there's a bill that comes up that somehow changes things. It's usually called a farm bill, but there's usually something in there that people don't talk about that really affects how you even get food to the table, right? We need to start having conversations with people where we take the big words and make them into understandable things for people, right?
Sure.
And it's a huge problem. So anybody that's moving to North Carolina, I will let them know. Pay very close attention to what happens in Raleigh because one of the biggest stories that happened out of North Carolina for the past 10 years was what? HB2.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in D.C. It happened right down the road in Raleigh. We need to be paying attention to that. There are a lot of things that are happening, and I think the people who understand how important what's happening in Raleigh is are the people that are running the show there. They're the people that are trying to take this state in a direction that it has never wanted to go. Say what you want to say about moderation, but North Carolina's always, for the last 20, 25 years, we've really had voters that have kind of been more, a dash of this, a dash of that, not people that are trying to go crazy one way or the other.
Right.
And folks need to understand that there are people who are running the show right now that don't have that philosophy. They want to go hard right. And it's not in the best interest of a lot of people here.
So let me just play. I'm the guy at Food Lion.
Yeah.
And maybe
Daniel
this is,
Fox.
Maybe this is the first time. This is going to be the whole episode, isn't it?
Hey, look, this is the first word. We set the tone.
That's I should have known. And maybe this is the first time I'm hearing about the attempt by Raleigh Republicans to take away the power, the governor's prerogative to appoint members of our state board of elections. I could see a situation for a lot of folks where their gut reaction is, weird, didn't know about that. But that doesn't seem like such a bad thing. I mean,
Right.
we do vote for a state auditor. I mean, they are elected. It's not, that person's still accountable in some way. So isn't it just taking, I guess for lack of a better metaphor, powers out of one pocket and putting it in the other? What would you maybe say to that in that scenario?
I would say that it's a issue that actually went to the voters. The voters voted on this.
Right.
And they said, we don't want that. And every opportunity, this has happened almost every session.
Yeah.
And I'll just be completely blunt with y'all. What happens is when people who are running the show right now in Raleigh think, oh, we got an issue that's going to be a winning issue. We're going to take it to the voters. We're going to let the voters vote on it to make it a constitutional amendment. And then the voters say, nah, we don't like that.
Yeah.
They say, well, we actually know what you really want to do. We're going to try to do it another
anyway.
way.
Yeah, right.
So you can't have it both ways. If you're going to say, we're going to go to the voters and we're going to respect what the voters say, then respect them, right? Don't try to say, I'm going to figure out a way to get around what the voters said, right? So if you're not from North Carolina, you might say, oh, what's the big deal? I would say, well, millions of people voted on whether or not it was a big deal, and they decided it's a big deal. We want to keep it the same way. I think sometimes, I'm not one of these people. I don't believe in bashing the Democratic Party for bashing the party's sake.
Sure.
I'm not that person.
You're not about like a circular firing squad.
I don't.
That's not your thing.
No. But as everybody knows, like I'm a huge Carolina fan. I was raised right. I'm a big Tar Heels fan, and the team that I'm hardest on is UNC.
Sure.
I'm hardest on them because I want to see them succeed.
God,
right?
you're so right. Like all the biggest Tar Heel fans I know are also the biggest Tar Heel critics.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as much as like I can't stand Duke, like my wife went to Duke, love her to death, love her in spite of, I also have a grudging respect for them because they bring it.
Yeah.
I know that game's going to be hard regardless what the records say. So I'm going to be critical of the Democratic Party. If you want somebody that's going to be a cheerleader for Democrats and say we're doing everything right, I'm not your guy. But if you want somebody that's going to just dump on us because we took an L, I'm not that guy either. But one of the things we have to do better as a party is we got to stop using $10 terms for $1 ideas. If something is an easy to understand concept, then we need to make it easy to understand. The point of speaking, the point of language is not to just sound good, to be poetic and flowery. There's a moment for that. But sometimes I think we want to sound right instead of sounding convincing. We don't want to go to people and say, this is a pretty simple concept.
An opportunity economy.
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, what does opportunity economy mean?
Right. We don't want to try to win the slogan wars, right? We don't always want to say, well, I think there's used to be this idea, right, that we want to have everything that looks good on a bumper sticker. And we have to sometimes remember that sometimes people can't afford cars.
Well, I'm going to I'm with you on that, where we can't always afford cars, but we don't win any slogan wars, right? Pro-life, 2 words. That's a slogan, and it wins every time. Like, that's just, taxation is theft, right? Wins every time. Democrats, I feel like there's no 3-word, 4-word, 1 syllable in each one of those words that we can win from. We have that is our Achilles heel. I do think we should have some type of slogans that make it, because, if you're not pro-life, what are you? That means you're pro-death. They win that pretty heavily.
I think there are instances in the not too distant past where Democrats have crushed it at the slogan game. Yes, we can.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, the last time North Carolina flipped, it was a yes, you can. Yes, we can.
Prime example, trying to win that slogan. Like, we need to get something.
Yeah. I think to kind of marry both of y'all's ideas together. When it comes to winning the slogan war, sometimes what we end up getting into trouble over is that we want to come up with a good slogan, and then when people are like, yo, what does that mean? We can't explain if you were talking to an Obama supporter in 2008, they could explain to you what yes we can meant.
That's right. Anybody could.
You got to have the top and the bottom. You got to have the whole point of having a good slogan is that it's a good way to summarize what you're already thinking.
Yeah.
Right? You're putting an easy to understand package around something that you already know. So when people say things like opportunity economy, okay, cool, what does that mean? And you're like, that That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I think the reason people could define like a yes we can slogan is because there was a person who coined that term who could define it for you, right? Like this goes back to
There was a chosen messenger already.
there was a messenger that everybody could look at and go, okay, those are the talking points we're going to parrot coming from that guy, right? What he says, I'm going to say, and how he justifies it, I'm going to justify it. And so I think, where we are right now, like I have this conversation all the time with many, many people, most recently my brother, where he's like, man, like what are Democrats doing? And I'm like, which ones? Because, Chris Murphy and Maxwell Frost were just here in Alamance County.
Yeah.
They crushed it. I've never seen the Hall River Ballroom packed with that many people.
Crowd.
Huge crowd, right? And people were fired up on the same page, united in defiance. So, if your
And
question
simple
is...
messaging.
And an incredibly
Right.
simple messaging.
Like Maxwell said, if you're a Trump voter and you're here, my message is simple. I'm sorry you were lied to. Welcome to the team. Everybody can define what that means, right? Everybody is ready to go. There's no hate involved with it. I'm sorry.
no,
Welcome
I
to the
told you
team.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm thinking that I guess this is all to say that when we have many messengers, it is challenging to find the message.
Right.
Well, what do you think it is, Chaz? Why is it so hard for the party to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, I personally feel like because issues are not black and white. Issues are so nuanced and stuff, and it's real hard for us to say yes or no, where I feel like on the Republican side, they make issues that are super nuanced, yes or no. Trans issues, right? It's a yes or no from them, where it's like, it's not really that simple. So that's why I think we have a very tough time with it. But what do you think is the dam that is stopping us from being good messaging?
Yeah, issues are not black and white, but values are. So if you ask me why I became a Democrat, I can tell you. Because I saw people who were coming up like me that weren't getting the opportunities I got, and that's what I want for them.
So
right?
that's your elevator pitch for being a Democrat.
That is not only my elevator pitch, that is the reason I'm on the elevator to begin with, right?
Okay.
And so that's a black and white issue for me. If a bill when I was in the legislature came across my desk and I'm like, this is gonna hurt people who are coming up the way I'm coming up right now. When I was coming up, like the people that are in the shoes that I once walked, if it hurt them, I ain't voting for it. That's simple. Because it's a values question for me. Now, when it comes to how I would write a bill, then I'm bringing in stakeholders. I'm going to this person, yo, what do you think? I'm going to that person, yo, what do you think? And I'm trying to get as many ideas, as many minds in the room to create the idea, the issues, to define them. But so many times, and I've said this before and I'll say it again because it always bears repeating, we sometimes come to people and we say things, we very much approach it like, these people are not going to believe what I have to say. There's no way they can agree with me.
Right.
As you mentioned, I was born in Statesville. I lived in Taylorsville, Alexander County, lived in Conover, Catawba County. These are all Trump 60+% counties.
Yeah.
These are not bastions of liberalism. Like, and it wasn't like they were cranking out progressives.
Right.
But that was where those places were literally the places that I lived until I was 18.
Okay.
And then I went to Massachusetts and I saw what like real deal, like liberalism, real deal progressives look like. But it wasn't like I got to college and I just changed everything I believed.
Well, you mean you didn't go to college and a professor indoctrinate you into just thinking these liberal tendencies? Because that's what happens, especially at Harvard, bro.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now, professors wish that their students would believe everything they had to say. Like, they wish that these kids would come in there and they'd just be like, oh, professor, tell me what I should believe.
Yeah.
Usually it's your peers, it's your friends, it's the people that you hang out with. Those are the people that are genuinely kind of getting you to reassess things and change things.
If it wasn't for Jeremy Wynn, I probably would have never smoked pot in my life. And my professor didn't tell me to do that.
Did he though?
Right.
Did he though? But that's the thing, right? We have, and I'm so glad you brought up the professor point because I think it's a clear example. Chris Rock once said, "You gotta, when you hear something, let it swirl around in your head and then figure out what you think about it." Right?
That's why he didn't hit Will Smith back.
You could see it.
He was thinking about it.
Oh, look, we could spend a whole podcast on that whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's a clear. You could see the wheels in his like, should I get back? But the reality is, when people say things like, "Oh, these kids are going to these schools and these professors are teaching them how they should think," if you take a 5-second pause and you say, "What 18-year-old kids do you know that are saying, let me do everything that older people tell me to do?" And you're like, I can't think of one. Then you would say, you know what? I don't think that's BS. I don't think that professors are actually capable of going in and just brainwashing kids, right? But we're not ever willing to really take a step back and say, let's clap back. Let's say, what in the world are you talking about, right? But one of the things we do have to do, you know, when we were talking a little bit earlier about the party, we have to understand that demographics are not destiny, and that people don't stay where they are when it comes to thought processes, right? And that can be a good thing. It's not always a bad thing, right? If we've been having this conversation in 2005, we would have been talking about how, what do people think about gay marriage, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now in 2025, people are like, I'm pretty much cool with it. You know, even people that are super religious, have religious issues with it, are still very much like, but I'm cool with them living their lives.
It would be
right?
a losing campaign to run against gay marriage.
Right.
And,
right. And that's an example of people evolving in their thought process. But it can happen the other direction too. It can happen where people become more reactionary. It can happen when people become less open to new ideas, because you're seeding whole areas of thought, right? Which is why this podcast is so important, because there's a whole group of podcasts out there where they're not talking about what we're talking about.
Oh, sure.
And they're very much just feeding people the same old stuff and asking them to talk about it the same way. So instead of us being like, oh, you know, so problematic, like, what's wrong with these kids? We got to understand, like, if we don't bring a message to these people, they're going to get it from somewhere. Most of the time, going back to your professor point, I'm not trying to start preaching at y'all, but
I mean, it's Sunday.
I know. The doors of the church are open.
That's right.
You know, but when it comes to the professor point, we have to understand that people are going to seek out information wherever it can be found. If they've got a question, they're going to do what? Pull out their phone and type it in. And if the first thing that pops up is a podcast from Joe Rogan, they're going to click on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why people believe the earth is flat. You Google, is the earth flat? It's going to say yes.
Or we're not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Both sides have a valid perspective.
So what angle are you coming at this, Chaz, with so we're hearing a lot of messaging. Is it just the party overarching message? Is it the message from North Carolina with bills coming through? And I'll give you an example of this, of how genius it is with the GOP, the new concealed carry. It is, that bill, they're labeling it as constitutional carry. Like, Jesus, that is just a beautiful name.
But also that's a really unpopular bill. Like, the majority of people, polls are showing that 60+% of North Carolinians of voting age don't support that bill, even if it's packaged brilliantly.
Sure, but when you say, do you believe in constitutional carry, it's to their base, they're about it. Where we put out, trans rights to play pickleball, and you're just like, guys, what are we doing?
Well, I'll give you the constitutional carry bill came up, and I'm using that term deliberately, right? The constitutional carry bill came up while I was in the legislature, and it didn't go anywhere. It came up in the next session. It didn't go anywhere.
When you say it didn't go anywhere, did it get vetoed? It didn't get past committee?
It didn't get passed. There were a couple of times where it got close, and I think it got through maybe one house, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a few years, but in any case, it didn't become law either time. Now, I've been a gun owner for years. I'm from the country, right? I grew up around guns.
What you got at home?
I got a P226 6-hour. Me and one of my really good friends also literally a Democratic activist. We used to go every Friday to the gun range, right? I grew up with, there was a rifle over my grandmother's door.
Nice.
And my grandfather's door. And did I touch it one time? Absolutely not. I did not, because I knew that if I, speaking of gun safety,
right,
if I would not be safe if they found out I was playing with that thing, right?
And not that you were scared of the gun. It was about grandma coming to come with
grandma. I was scared of
grandma.
grandma. I was scared of grandma. I was scared of granddaddy, you know? My granddaddy had pistols. Like, we all grew up around it, but we were taught safety, right? And again, going back to your point about constitutional carry specifically, we have to go to people and say things like, do you think it's a good idea for people who don't know how to use a gun, don't take the time to actually try to figure out how to use them, to just be able to just roll up to you and just have a gun in their pocket on their waistband? Are you cool with that? But if we go to them and we say, this is a danger to our society, and, I respect the Second Amendment, but this just goes far too, that is a different conversation. You got to say to people, do you want somebody, if I'm going up to a door, a Democratic door, and I'm knocking on doors in East Durham, where I've knocked on doors before. But I'm knocking on doors in East Durham, and I go to them and say, have you heard about this constitutional carry bill? It would really put our neighbors in danger. No, I go to them and say, look, do you know what it's like to walk around and not know if somebody's got a gun on their hip, right? Do you want somebody to be able to just do that, not know how to use a gun? Are you going to feel safer about that? And they're going to say no.
Yeah.
But we got to be able to talk to people in different stations. We can't always be up here having conversations in the clouds.
Right.
When these are conversations that really should be happening at ground level. So it's. I just want to be, let's just be straight up about it, right? Kristi Noem, all right?
Yeah.
America's Most Wanted when it comes to killing puppies, right? Like, she literally was just on social media carrying a weapon.
Right, cosplaying, yeah.
Carrying a weapon, had literally the
guy's
gun
head,
pointed
right?
at the guy's head. This is stuff you learn, basic stuff that you learn in any gun safety class. You don't track across somebody's body. If you've never heard that terminology, you don't need to know you don't need to own a gun, because you don't know enough about guns. If you don't know about tracking across someone's body, you don't do it. And as someone who has used guns many different types of weapons for many decades, that is a number one basic. You do not do that, because you should treat any weapon as though it is loaded, right? But again, because she's playing something on TV, she's
LARPing.
She's making she's making basic mistakes, and so we got to call them out on that. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I know. So I'm not even joking, y'all. I know so many Republicans who are in the legislature with me that would argue me down about constitutional carry. And I'd be like, do you own a gun? Oh, well, and then they start stammering real quick.
Right.
Because they don't. I do.
Yeah.
Many of the Democrats in the legislature do. We know what real gun safety looks like because we actually know how to use them, right? And that's the difference. But a lot of them, they don't. I'm not saying all of them. There are several people. There are several Republicans who know a lot about gun safety, very respectful of it. They may just, have a different philosophy than me on this issue. But there are a lot that don't.
Yeah.
And we go into it like we got to be on the back foot. Again, why? I'm not going to be on the back foot when it comes to gun safety issues, because I know how to use them.
Yeah. So, question. Clearly, to be successful in the next election cycle, not necessarily 2028, but like midterms or even municipals this year, Democrats are going to have to make up some ground in terms of vote share. And that can come from really one of two places. That could come from energizing folks who are part of the base, folks who have voted Democrat in the past and maybe sat out the last election for whatever reason, or that could come from siphoning votes from folks who are consider themselves apolitical and don't vote, or folks who traditionally maybe vote Republican. I'm setting this up as you have to choose. I guess maybe you don't have to choose, but it does feel difficult to do both. It does feel like it feels to me kind of like you do kind of have to choose, or make a strategic choice over which group are you okay maybe you know, I don't want to say losing votes, but if you pick one group, there's a chance you might alienate folks in the other group. So anyway, that's a long way of asking, which path do people take to get back to that winning coalition?
Yeah, I firmly believe, I'm not trying to skirt your question. I just firmly believe that if you think there is a choice, that is instantly putting yourself on the back foot. If you look at the most successful Democratic politicians in the past 20 years, almost all of them did better in almost every category than the ones that didn't win.
Right.
So President Obama, who we were talking about a little bit earlier, he did better among just about every group.
Sure.
And it's almost
Dude
like
won Indiana.
Yeah, he won Indiana. And
He won North Carolina.
He won North Carolina. If we'd have been having this conversation, if we'd had a conversation in 2005, right? We knew that President Obama had an amazing speech at the DNC. But I think that if we'd had a conversation in 2005,
nobody would have been floating him.
We wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, he's not only is he going to win, but he's going to win in what looks like a landslide today.
Right.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation with people in 2005. I remember it very well. And them being like, no, we'll never have a black president. It's never going to happen. And literally 3 years later, it happened. So sometimes we have to have messengers who are willing to have conversations with everybody. And usually it is a situation where, as the cliche goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. If you have a message that appeals to people, it'll probably appeal to a much broader group of people than you think. But I don't think, I will say this because it needs to be said. We have got to stop treating Trump like he is this once in a generation, amazing, untouchable politician. He's run for president 3 times. He has never gotten a majority of the electorate to vote for him. I'll say that again. He's run 3 times and he's never gotten a majority of the electorate to vote for him. Now, someone's going to listen to that and they're going to say, but he got more votes than Kamala Harris last time. That is not a majority. He got like 49 and some change. So literally we're treating this dude who has never gotten most voters to vote for him as though he is this untouchable dude. The numbers don't bear that out. So why are we acting like he is? The other thing that doesn't bear that out, frankly, is that everybody who tries to copy him and do their poor man's Donald Trump impersonation gets whooped at the ballot box. Carrie Lake, whooped. Mark Robinson, whooped. Like, I can go down the list. If you try to pretend to be Trump, you're going to lose probably. And you're probably going to get embarrassed if you want to be frank. So why are we treating this guy like we cannot do anything to him? That he's this unassailable guy. He's not.
Well, I mean, I think there is some kind of like je ne sais quoi, like there's something unique about Trump that is not replicable in other candidates. That's certainly true. He did win a majority in North Carolina, you know. I mean, and like nationally, absolutely, he's never won a majority, but a majority of North Carolina voters in a state that, you know, hinges. We have some elections statewide come down to a couple hundred votes. He won by North Carolina standards, I would say like close to a landslide in a state that certainly a decisive win, decisive win.
Hey, look, 1/3, 3-3-3 is a good batting average, but it ain't good in politics, right? I think the other 2 times he didn't get a majority in North Carolina, right? And I'm not trying to say that we should not. I think this is, frankly, again, I'm not trying to make this to a bash the party session, but I think one of the things that we don't do. I'm a big believer in understanding your opponent. Know thy enemy, right?
Little Sun Tzu, yeah.
You gotta, and we don't, a lot of times because we know that Donald Trump is such a problematic dude, we don't actually take time to try to figure out the things that he's successful at. To your point earlier,
I think it's a great point.
Yeah. To your point earlier, Daniel, I don't want to forget this because I think it's an important one. What has the American public seen about Donald Trump for the past 40 years? They've seen him in wood-paneled rooms, sitting in big chairs behind a desk,
Sure.
making authoritative decisions.
Firing people.
You're fired, right?
Yeah.
They've heard, frankly, let's talk about the black community. We've heard rappers rap about Donald Trump since I was in middle school, elementary school. They've been talking about how he's
He's
the man.
been synonymous with like the alpha
Success.
Yeah.
He's been synonymous with success. So for most of Mark Robinson doesn't have 35 years in the game. Rappers rapping about him, on television.
Pissing on his sister-in-law.
Yeah, like we don't that dude, man. I mean, that's an example though of somebody who tried to be like he's over here trying to be Donald Trump. This is what since you're about to have the governor on. This is about it. I wish the governor, if there's one thing I wish he would have done in the campaign. Mark Robinson has like 10 siblings. I think he's one of 10. I wish he would have gotten at least one of his siblings to endorse Josh Stein. That would have been amazing. Because I guarantee
odds are
at least one of his siblings either left it blank or didn't vote for him. I guarantee it. And
I
that
would be
been
so mad at my brother. I'd be like, really, bro? Like, really, out of anything? But I did have family members who are super, super Republican. And, when I was running, I asked people, you ask your family members for money. Yeah. And they're like, I'll give you if you need $100, here's $100. But I can't donate to your campaign. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
I believe it.
Man, really? Like, really?
I believe it.
But you still took their money, right?
Well, they didn't give me money. Like they were like, "I'll give you $100 if you need $100." Like if I needed groceries or something.
If you needed like an oil change or something.
They'll do that. But they weren't doing it for the campaign. And definitely, being on Act Blue. If you get on that list, man, you're just ex-nayed from the Republican Party now.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about. We're coming up on some time here. What advice would you have for young people that are running? That are in a progressive state of mind, that are liberal, that would fall under the Democratic Party. What should they do? Do they go in and say, this is how we're doing this right out the gate? Do they listen? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, number one, I would say knock on hard doors. Don't just knock on. I mean, one of the things I've said many times before, if you're only knocking on doors with lawns and not knocking on doors with steps, you're not going to some of these places where, it's, you kind of gotta drive into some places that you might not necessarily want to drive into to have conversations. You're not knocking on the right kind of doors.
If you're not getting good stories out of canvassing, then you're not canvassing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to, I started knocking on doors probably at this point almost 20 years ago in Catawba County for a guy who was running for Congress, who was a great guy, Daniel Johnson, literally lost a leg for this country. Like legit dude, thought the world of him, wish he had won. But that's where I started knocking on doors. So, I'm not knocking on easy doors here. I'm knocking on doors where I'm going to have some tough conversations. So I would say to anybody, don't just stay on social media, which I'm not trying to make it into like a thing about social media, but go actually knock on some doors. Because there's a difference between having an event, having a town hall, for example, as a legislator, and expecting people to always come to you.
Oh yeah, that's not
versus
happening.
You going to them, right? So that's number one.
And you're talking about the knocking on doors that aren't because everybody has a minivan that is not. You look up their voting record. This person has voted Democratic for the last 40 years. Like, don't go knock on that door. You want to go knock on that one that's been flip flopping, or are you even saying to go knock on doors that have just been red all the way down?
I'm definitely saying that. So there's probably going to be some people who are big proponents of minivan that are going to probably want to knock me out after this. But I'm going to say,
are there any big proponents of minivan?
I'm going to say there might be some. You'd be surprised.
Having used minivan, I can tell you, like I would be the last person anybody would invite to design an app.
Yeah.
I could do it better.
Yeah, I bet. I'll just say that I once had a dude who said he was not going to vote for me again because I voted against daylight savings time. So I don't put anything past anybody. That's a real story, by the way.
I believe it.
I was like, I still don't like
He
it.
must have had some crazy like seasonal affective disorder or something. Just that if that is his single issue.
I believe that if I could do anything, wave a magic wand, I would throw propensity scores out the window. I would throw all those scores out the window. The way I learned like 20 years ago, the way we used to have to cut turf was that we used to actually have to use data points. So we couldn't say, oh, what's your turnout score? We had to actually go, okay, and say, you voted in the last 3. So you have to, you voted in the last 3 primaries. So we're going to say last 3. And we had to actually like look at stuff to cut turf. Mm-hmm. Now people use these scores, and I think some of these scores are starting to turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy where they say, oh, you're likely a Democratic voter, so I'm going to put you in my universe. And then because you're in my universe, that's going to make your likely score go up. And it's kind of doing this thing. There was a, and again, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, don't ever call me out, but I do want to make sure I'm right about this. I read a study that was done on Fair Fight back in 2014, I think it was, and from 2014, 2016, I think in 2018. And they talked about how they actually went through and they put everybody into their universe. And the turnout scores for people who had like a turnout score of 10 was high. But one of the highest groups of turnout was ones. People who shouldn't have been shown because they had never been reached out to. No one had ever actually gone and said, hey, yo, do you want to vote? And they would say, yeah, I'll go vote. And they would go vote because no one had ever actually kicked the tires on the scores.
Man, that's funny you mentioned that because when the election was happening, we were talking about in some of our group chats and with other people, like a lot of us strong people that have voted all the time, that have been in to the left of center. I was getting Trump stuff sent to me. Yep. And like, we were making fun of it. Like, they're wasting their money, these idiots.
You're right, man. I remember I was getting so many Trump mailers.
But they did that on purpose. They didn't care. It wasn't them wasting money being idiots. They put everybody in their universe, and we're not putting everybody in our universe.
Yep. It's just like in the olden days of 2004 when John Kerry basically was like, after a while, it became very clear they were fighting in 4 states. Mm-hmm. And what did the Republicans do? They fought in 4 states.
That was your first election, wasn't it?
That was like my first election.
Where you voted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So basically because they had narrowed the playing field, it ended up narrowing the playing field for them too. And I think we have one of my really good friends really put it so well. He said, we are going to technical ourselves to death. We are going to basically start to be, so deep in algorithms that we're going to algorithm ourselves to death. Like, we're going to basically be like, oh, this number says that this is what we should do. But it's like, yo, you got to kick the tire on these
we're
numbers.
Forgetting that politics is an art and not a science. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So after all, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge. Being a representative, worked on campaigns and stuff. It really sounds like, Chaz, that you're gearing up for something here.
I knew we were coming up on it.
You did a podcast before ours. Now you're doing this podcast. What's next in the chapter for Chaz Beasley?
Yeah. Well, I can be very blunt with you and say I'm not gearing up for a run or anything.
Well,
like
you
that.
are running tomorrow at the gym.
Running at the gym.
Yeah.
Yep. My, probably gonna be running with my little baby.
Okay.
I got a little 9-month-old. Me and my wife have a little 9-month-old.
Congrats.
Ava. Yeah, she's phenomenal. But I tell people this all the time, and I mean it sincerely. There are some people, they just can't imagine what the world's going to be like when they don't have honorable in front of their name. I already get mail with honorable in front of my name. I don't need any more.
That's enough,
right? I'm not one of these people who needs to be in office to feel like I'm special. There's enough work out there to do.
Yeah.
That you don't have. There are plenty of people. I know plenty of people right now who have worked their tails off in politics and never been an elected official ever.
Right.
So I don't want to be one of these people that's like, I need to run for something. There's got to be something that I can run for. It ain't me. I am.
We all know those people.
Yeah, and they get on my nerves, man. They get on my nerves.
But what you're saying resonates because that's kind of how we got the podcast. Was we wanted to find a way to help move the needle.
Right.
There are many. The first thing obviously was, why don't I run for county commissioner? But then I thought about it for 2 seconds and was like, no, there are other ways.
Yes.
There are other ways. So what you're saying totally makes sense. And I think we need more folks who see it from that standpoint, who understand that, like you said, there's life after Raleigh, there's a life beyond politics, and that's a life that is full of awesome things, and it still is engaged, it's still involved.
Yeah.
And if one of the major problems we have today is that the world is run from top to bottom. I mean, we see this with Jefferson Griffin now, by folks who can't imagine a future where they don't get everything they want.
Yeah, man, Jefferson Griffin, like, give it up, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Throwing that towel.
It's almost May.
Wonder
It's
if
sad.
he really could though. Like honestly, and I'm not trying to give this dude any sympathy because I think it all boils down. He could make the decision to say stop this, but how much pressure is he getting from that?
Oh, he's getting a
party?
ton of pressure.
He's in too deep. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
He's
so, like,
way
I don't-
too deep.
Yeah.
He's in over his head. Let's be real here. If Democrats ever even hinted at throwing out military voters,
There would be mutiny in
man,
dude.
we would hear about that, and you know what? We would deserve it.
Yeah.
Because that's terrible. And here's the thing that also drives me crazy, because again, we can't both sides ourselves to death either. The same people who are still stuck on 2020, the election was stolen. No one has ever said that their election should have been. None of these elected officials have ever said that their election should be,
Right.
checked on because there was some voter
Just
fraud.
just the one for the office that they want to flip.
That's
Or
right.
want to invalidate. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So all these voters that they're trying to kick out. So if some of those if enough of those voters were in Trish Cotham's district, then that could potentially flip that seat. Are you cool with that? Are you cool with that? No, they're not cool with that. Of
course
right?
not.
There are plenty of close legislative races that we can go down the list for that came down to a few votes. I think you had Woodson Bradley on a
Yeah.
Woodson, Pittman, Beth
yeah,
Helfrich.
exactly. They all came down to a few, and there were a few on the Republican side too where they won.
Well, I don't
by
care
a
about
few.
those.
But the point, the point being, if you start throwing out votes, that could change some elections. So let's just be real here. I've won elections, I've lost one. It ain't fun losing.
Yeah, you like winning more?
I like winning a lot more. But the sun will come up tomorrow.
The world keeps spinning.
Like if you really that geared in, like you can run again. But Jefferson Griffin, like this is becoming ridiculous. Like I'm sorry, like you got to just let this go. You lost. Allison Riggs won. It's a wrap. Pack
I
it
mean,
up.
it is at a point now where it will be in his obituary.
Oh, sure.
And it will be a really sad look for the
This
rest
is
of his
gonna
life.
go down
this
in
is
history.
gonna
One of
be
the
what
two.
he's known for.
yeah.
So
I mean, and I'm not trying to give him any encouragement, but literally Mark Harris, literally had his race thrown out because there was literal vote fraud, right?
Yeah.
And he's in Congress now, which is another. I mean, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. Literally, there's books about it and everything, but.
y'all go listen to the Improvement Association.
That
great
is
podcast.
a great, yes.
Yeah.
That is a great podcast.
Bladen County.
Me and my mom actually listened to it while we were driving.
Really?
Down east down to Wilmington. We listened to it because I was
Going through Bladen County.
Going through Bladen County, we
That's
listened to
great.
that. So it's a very interesting
Yeah.
topic, but I guarantee you, it will be okay. But right now you're making the whole state look bad. So you can keep throwing these legal Hail Marys. You lost, dude. It's cool. Go home, dust yourself off, grow a beard.
You're still in
the
appellate
whole
court.
thing.
Like you're still in
the
appeals court. Yeah. Just like
you still got a job. You still got a job.
We got time for just a quick rapid fire.
Sure, hit 'em.
All right. I mean, this is just we have like some.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, yeah, but I want to shoot from the hip with this one.
Okay, go ahead.
We're gonna land this plane how we took off, right? I want to furry name. What's your furry name? Quinn, you want to start?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Quinn the Quail.
Quinn the Quail. Oh my God, that was.
Quail Man from Doug.
I know.
No, nobody watched Doug.
I did not.
He wore his underwear over his khakis, and then he wore a belt over.
Are you getting
Quail.
this?
Did you not watch
it was on
Doug Funny
Yeah, it
on
was Doug.
Nickelodeon?
Yeah, that was.
I guarantee
yeah,
you,
he
you
did
elder
have,
millennials
I didn't
out
get-
there.
I
Yeah,
didn't
he
get
did. Yeah,
cable.
yeah.
Oh,
I had to go to
man.
my grandma's for
I don't
that.
know.
Yeah. He was. Yeah, no, he definitely That was definitely
was
like
Doug.
Doug's like alter ego. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
definitely
drew
did have
it.
like a.
Okay, so that's gonna be you. That's you're
Yeah,
playing the quail.
I guess
All
I was
right.
trying to just figure
Fair.
something
All right,
out.
the honorable Chaz Beasley.
Yeah.
A most undignified question
I know,
for
right?
you. What's your furry name?
I mean, well, with a name like Beasley, it's got to
Yeah.
be a play on that, right?
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
in high school, like that was people used to call me, "Oh, Killer Bees." Like people used to say that. So
Killer
that's-
Bees is
They
great.
used to say that
Yeah.
because it's from like Wu-Tang.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes, that's what they used to call. That's what they used to call me in high
That's
school.
cool.
They're coming
yeah.
around June 7th. Yeah, they're playing here in Raleigh. Yeah,
PNC?
Wu-Tang. I think Walnut Creek.
Oh wow.
Oh no!
Yeah.
See, this is what people. This
That's
is the
where
kind
you
of
need to take
information
Ava.
people need.
Yes.
Yes, I need to. Oh, she's already been introduced to like '90s hip hop, '90s rap,
Man,
old
yeah.
school gospel.
Good
she's gonna-
parenting.
she's got. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally waiting for her to get to the stage where she can like.
The
watch
only
screens
reason I
and-
know
yeah.
is because it's my wife's 40th birthday. Oh, man,
Oh,
I'm spilling the beans on it, and I was like,
She'll
I
forgive
want
me.
to go to Wu Tang, and it's like, but it's her birthday, and she doesn't do Wu Tang, but I do Wu Tang, and I'm just like, this is okay.
She doesn't do Wu Tang yet.
Yet.
That's right. That's right.
It's
I mean,
never too late.
And we've
Right,
all
right.
done those gifts where you give somebody the thing that you really want them to give to you.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's, you can get away
Yeah.
with that every once
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
Every
It
once
can
in a
happen.
while.
It can
Every once in a while. But you can also do. Not trying to spend your money for you, but you can do two things, right?
Yeah.
You could do concert,
Yeah.
maybe like spot the Umstead.
That's right.
After
There you go.
that, kind of make it a.
You got
know,
any connections over there?
Look,
Killer
hey,
Bees?
I'm out of office now, man.
I was gonna say, you're,
I don't have the
you're
juice
too
like I
late
used
for
to.
that.
I don't
yeah.
have the juice like you should have talked to me in 2019 or
That's
2020
right,
or something.
that's right.
I could have probably helped you out, but yeah, no, that's the way to do. You got to book in it, and make it an overnight thing. You
Yeah.
know, like get her a nice stay. Package it together. Everybody's getting what they want. Everybody's
Right
winning.
So Killer Bees. I think
That
is
was
what
my
we're
high
rolling
school.
with.
That's
I think
my high
that's
school
great.
nickname.
I think that
it's all. I mean, I'm sure it's like on Google somewhere.
it's
like,
timeless. That's great.
Sure. I'm sure they have an outfit already ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
But man, now that we are all a trio of
I was gonna
furries,
say, we got to get the suits.
this is hilarious. But Chaz, where can people keep up with you at and
Yep.
see what you're doing? And
Yep. So, shout out to my mom for giving me a unique name. All my social media is like Chaz Beasley.
Yeah.
So it's like either Chaz Beasley or Chaz_Beasley.
And,
for
and you're,
everything.
you're some type of kin to Sherry, right?
No.
No relation.
I
They're
get that
like-
question all
Yeah.
the time. She get like, so my mom's name is Sherry, but not Sherry Beasley. So yeah.
Dude, it's funny. I for up until we started scheduling this interview, I thought that you were kin to Sherry Beasley.
Yo,
the
there are
Justice.
worse people to be.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Like she's phenomenal.
Yeah,
so I'm
it's a
like,
credit- it's a credit to
I
you
don't-
both.
I'm totally cool with people thinking that we're related, but no, we're
no
not.
cousinship, no nothing.
No,
Married in.
We've looked on Ancestry.com. Like,
The
no,
whole
we're not.
thing.
I think we are technically related because our grandparents are Adam and Eve. So
There you go.
like,
Ah, I see what you
Yeah,
did there.
just
I
way
see what
back.
you
that
did
goes
there.
way. It's a
Yeah.
few
Yeah,
generations
yeah.
removed, but
We
somewhere
there.
down the line.
We there.
Cool. Well, we got a little gift for you. All of our guests get a special gift from our friends at TS Designs. They're Alamance County's flagship apparel company. They have these amazing shirts that are all South Carolina, North Carolina, cotton supply chain, fair trade. Like they're the most comfortable shirts you will wear. And we love to give them to our friends for coming out to Alamance County and hanging out with us. So, Chaz, thank you so much for chilling with us. We'll make sure you get a shirt.
Yeah.
And, folks, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, consider hopping on to our socials and giving us a follow. We're everywhere. Blue
We're on
Sky.
Substack now.
We're on Substack now. Please
Yeah.
follow us on Substack. We've had some really positive feedback on the
Yeah, it's been
articles.
cool.
Shout out to Milo Baines, our senior contributing
Yeah.
writer on our Substack. And, folks,
Yeah.
thanks for listening.